G'day and welcome to Mark and Sam After Work. Today I want to do a video on carbon barrels. Carbon fibre wrapped barrels, carbon fibre barrels, all the different ways of saying it. They do mean different things in places. But I suppose I'll start with a little bit of an overview, first of all from me. Although I have used them, and it's something I should point out, I have used them in all formats. I've only got a couple on video, so I can show you that I have been behind them. But that one was a 375 H&H in much more of a tactical / safari style rifle, offhand shooting. And yes, the balance of that rifle was really good because of the carbon fibre. And then I've also used it in testing, which I've done on rifles, which is here's one that's a 375. Shy-tac, and really pushing the boundaries on a carbon fibre barrel, but that's still shot properly, still worked properly and all the rest of it. And yes, they do work properly even at the extreme levels. Where I've used them more appropriately is down in the likes of 22 250s and things like that, in proper hunting rigs. Haven't got any of that sort of stuff on video, but it really works in those places. You're not going to see carbon fibre barrels a lot on what I do in the ELR shooting, in the extreme precision shooting that I do, in the platform that I do it. And that is because for my quick assessment of where I'm at with what I do, I've never seen the advantage of carbon fibre barrels. That doesn't mean that they're not a good product, and that doesn't mean they don't have a place. And that's really where I want to come from in this video, is I suppose in discussions with people and discussions with gunsmiths and some of the bits and pieces that people have to deal with in the business side of it, is that to some degree seems to be at least a misunderstanding of what the carbon fibre barrel is about. And that might be from people either using it inappropriately with where they think it should go, to people using it or thinking that a carbon fibre barrel is a more expensive barrel, so it's simply a better barrel, and in some cases not going there because I don't need that accuracy, and other places going there simply think because they feel it's better, or because they think it's better, it's more technologically advanced, so it's better, so it costs more money, so it'll be better, so that's why I want it. And it doesn't necessarily fit into those places. I suppose another detail, and this is more my opinion from my engineering stand on the world, and I'm not an engineer, I'm a mechanic, but still I have worked with a lot of high tech and low tech and everything over the years, and I suppose to me the carbon fibre barrel is something of a contradiction. Now let me explain what I'm talking about, and I'll try and go through all that sort of stuff, but I want to qualify, I'm not saying at any stage carbon fibre barrels are anything other than a very good product when done properly and when used properly. So let's get into what a carbon fibre barrel is to start off with. I've got a couple in front of me. This is a proof research I have here, which is probably one of the original. I think Christian Arms was, and these guys were right on the back of each other, and they were right at the beginning of taking a technology which is a very sound and very proven technology in some places, and bringing it into the firearm industry on the barrel side of things. And here is a fairly new kit on the block. I don't know how long ago it was, but this is a Bartlam barrel. Both in similar processes with their differences, and I suppose the thing I'll say now and I'll say again, a carbon fibre barrel is not just a carbon fibre barrel. They can be done very differently, and there's different qualities, and if you are considering it, do some research before you go down that road and make sure you're getting one of the better options. The way they're made in the basic terms is they take a good barrel, whether they make one or they purchase one, but they take a good barrel that's already largely done, or barrel blank. So it has the rifling, it has the steel, it has the bits and pieces, and it would have started off looking similar to this, but all steel. Then they machine the center piece of this out. I think on this barrel you'll find the actual barrel is about as thick as that spigot on the end there. That's how it ends up like a drawn out thimble, a knob on this end, a knob on that end, and then they put the carbon fibre in the middle there. I'll put that down so I can just wave my hands around to show what I'm talking about. And I'll put some images on, but once they've machined that down, now they're very carefully basically with mills and bits and pieces, take that material down very carefully to try and not change the shape of the barrel otherwise, but take it down. There's profiles and bits and pieces inside here and different ways of doing it, whether it's a straight step or it's profiled down or it's stepped down. There's a lot of different ways of doing that and trying to make your carbon fibre go into that place. And then for the likes of, I think, both Bartlein and Proof and probably Christian Arms, I don't know the finer details on it, but then they use a monofilament wrapping system, which takes either a wet or a dry, and I think there's carbon 6. Listen, I won't try and get into the brands and things, but they basically take carbon fibre, which is a strand of a composite material, and then wrap it on, and they'll have this spinning on a lathe, and they'll have, whether it's one, it's I think generally going to be multiple filaments that are going on there that are wrapping on and plaiting on like you would plait something, like I suppose a weave in some fashions, where it's actually laying onto this thing as it spins on, bringing the resin, which is what it needs to hold carbon fibre together. Carbon fibre is like a thread, so they need to get it onto the barrel, wrap it onto the barrel, and then let it set, and then bake it to turn it into the very, very rigid and strong material that it is. That's one way of doing it. There's other people that will use a cloth weaved out of it and wrap that onto the barrel and cook that onto the barrel in that fashion as well. So once that's all done, then they actually grind it down to finish it off, and you end up with something that is the same sizes as a normal steel barrel, but a big portion of that barrel is carbon fibre. Now, why would you do that? Well, in the essence of carbon fibre, you've probably heard many times, it's 5 to 10 times stronger than steel, and all the different numbers will go with it. And what we're actually talking about there is tensile strength, where if you took a skinny piece of steel or a thick piece, but let's just go with a skinny strand of steel and the skinny strand of the same dimensions of carbon fibre, you would find there's a big weight difference between the two. The carbon fibre is a lot lighter. And if you went to stretch on them, you'll find that the carbon fibre is also a lot stronger. Now, the percentage of things depend on various details on the steel, more so than the carbon fibre, but it is a lot. It is 5 times to 6 times or 10 times or 3 times. It's a lot in whatever form we're talking about. Now, what that is the tensile strength, is how strong it is on that side of things, and that's where its true strength comes from. It also conducts temperature a lot quicker, or a lot better, in the 4 times, and once again numbers that are a little bit different, a little bit relevant to the exact materials, but it conducts temperature a lot better. So what you'll hear in some places, generally it's not defined really well, but what you'll hear is that a carbon fibre barrel is going to be X times stronger because of the carbon fibre, and X times dissipate heat better because of the carbon fibre. Now, that is sort of true and not completely true, because that's talking about carbon fibre. Now, you cannot, well, I shouldn't say cannot, at this stage at least, you're not getting a carbon fibre steel barrel. You need carbon fibre and resin. What glues that carbon fibre together is just as important. Now, it's a resin that they use, and whether it's dry impregnated carbon fibre or it's wet impregnated carbon fibre and it's wrapped on, it's dried, or it's baked, or whatever process it goes through, it still needs the glue to hold it all together. Just like fiberglass uses a resin, well, carbon fibre does the same thing. Now, that glue, that doesn't transfer heat very well, and that isn't very strong. So, and this is one of the details that gets into the particular brand, how they do it, all those sort of bits and pieces matter immensely. I suppose to me there's another fundamental piece of this, is when you're trying to glue something to something that is malleable, so something really rigid that you're trying to glue to something that is malleable, and what I'm talking about there is a glass, and it is, although it is carbon fibre resin, it is gluing to steel, something that steel is malleable. It does have stretch in it. It does expand and contract and that sort of stuff. And you're trying to put something on it that doesn't want to expand and contract. Yes, the thing that doesn't want to is going to reinforce the thing that does want to, but there's also a joint. There's a point that is potentially going to work loose and be an issue. So that's a potential thing. It does happen sometimes. It's one of the problems that carbon fiber barrels can have, but the better they do their carbon fiber wrapping in whatever process that is, or bonding, the better things work. But it is one of the things to keep in mind. The next bit is in that strength and that heat dissipation, that really depends on getting more of the carbon fiber and less of the resin. And also how consistent it is. There's no point having all the carbon fiber on the outside and the resin on the inside. You've just lost all of your heat transfer. You've just lost all of your actual rigidity because the actual slim barrel in the inside it is not supported properly. So I suppose the last bit that I've always had problems with is something that's going through such shock. To put something that is harder and more rigid in that place, I have some issues with. Not always, you don't always get the best strength and the best durability and the best reliability out of making it solid. Sometimes you've actually got to make it more flexible to go to those places, truss bridges and things like that. So there's some grey areas that have always been for me in the concept of it, but let's move forward with what I'm talking about here. There are, and I have two cases in front of me that do a very good job of counteracting those negatives I've got and end up with a very good result. So that's the process of building a carbon fiber barrel, and I suppose there are some things that are really obvious in that process. I got two here that are a little bit the example. One quite a slim profile, which actually has some reasonable weight to it. I'm not going to get into the finer details, but actually has some reasonable weight to it. And that is in the size of it, and obviously the end of the knock and the end of the barrel here are relevant, but also how slim they take the barrel down. This proof research is notably lighter for its configuration, but it's also a heavier profile. And the simple word of advice that I would say in all the experience I've had with them is that carbon fiber has its main advantages out of being light. Stiffer, not necessarily. Not so much. Stiffer per its weight, yes. So if you look at the weight at the size of it versus generally I should say, if you just weighed the two barrels, you had one a steel barrel and one carbon fiber barrel, and there's a significant difference in the weight versus the size, versus the two items versus the carbon fiber and steel. What you'll generally find to get that significant difference is that they are heavier barrels. So when you go with a big fat barrel, that's where your carbon fiber has most weight advantage, and then it has a similar strength. When you go to a slimmer barrel, so if you've got a slim barrel in carbon fiber because you're trying to get everything, generally you're not getting as much weight saving, and you're also not getting extra strength out of it. You'll tend to find that a slim carbon fiber barrel will not be as stiff as that same profile in a steel barrel. When you are looking for weight reduction and your barrel is the place where you want to do it, then it is a very good option. But there is other things going on. As I've said previously in videos when I was talking about rifle balance, once again, rifle balance is important, but as in that video, I was talking about where I prefer more weight. But more isn't always better. So weight isn't always your friend. It tends to help, but it can be a negative as well. Now, certainly when you go into hunting or into gun running competitions where you have to run between stages, or you're carrying it all day between your stages, that sort of stuff, or your stage involves running, all that sort of stuff, then all of a sudden lugging something that's really heavy can be a negative, and going light can really help. But as heavier isn't always better, lighter isn't always better. Basically, I sort of like to term it, it's probably a bit of a counter-negative comment, but as I like to position my compromises as well as I can, which I suppose you could say that in the other direction. I want to try and put the positives in the right place as well. So what I mean by that is building the lightest rifle ever, which some people are heading towards, doesn't always end up with a happy smiley face at the end of it. there is a ease out of shooting with a bit more weight. So if you go too light, then you get problematic into shooting. There is, when you take a really light sporter barrel that you're trying to get weight and you put in the same weight in a carbon fiber barrel, you're probably going to gain some accuracy out of the fact of generally where a carbon fiber is going to work better than a sporter isn't in the first shot, but whereas a sporter barrel tends to 3 shots and it's starting to move around the place because it starts to walk around because the metal is so thin, then the carbon fiber barrel will tend to resist that. So it's going to be more consistent over those shots, but you still have a very light rifle. So is it ultimately, and I suppose that's one of the things if you want to check online, a lot of people, because they're expensive, a lot of people tend to invest emotionally as well as financially into it. So you read there's a lot of people who will say that, I see 0.2 MOA groups all the time, or 0.30 MOA groups out of all my carbon fiber barrels. They shoot amazingly. I'm not saying they don't, but I will tell you generally, if you've got down to where you've got a completely light rifle, you tend to not find really good groups out of it. Although potential, the rifle itself moves. Does the barrel stiffness really change things? To be truthful, the stiffness is only in relevance to the overall size of the barrel anyway. And when we talk stiffness, when we actually talk carbon fiber, I suppose something I should touch on earlier, but I'll get back into where carbon fiber's real inherent strengths is in overall strength. So it's overall strength. So if you do a yacht mast out of it, awesome. You do a propeller blade, a helicopter blade, something like that, a big thing that has to deal with overall lateral bending forces. Carbon fiber is enormously good at dealing with that sort of stuff. What it isn't awesome at dealing with is high frequency and high shock load, although it's got strength to resist, to actually resist it in shocks, in resonance, in harmonics, then it's going to have the same issues, in some cases more, in some cases less, but similar to steel. So it's a place that means that, well, the simple bit is that you're not going to see a lot of carbon fiber barrels in precision ELR shooting, in precision F-class shooting, because two things. One, the overall weight of the rifle is generally an advantage. So why take weight out in one place with something that is simply, really its benefit is in its lightness? When you're looking at rifle balance, then okay, that can be a different thing. If you're trying to change balance, and this is more offhand, more the hunting side of things, more the multi-positional shooting and that sort of stuff, then yes, there can be an advantage. And I would use it in a competition or in a moderate weight rifle. I would tend to use a carbon fiber barrel if I was trying to position weight in different places. I'm not going to use one because I feel it's inherently going to be more accurate. So I suppose the other places are in exactly the opposite situation, which I can use in reference to the same thing, which isn't just carbon fiber, and that is people who have to have a truck axle of a barrel. And yes, I use a fair few truck axle barrels in heavy platforms, but guys that are using really heavy barrels and then having to lighten everything off to meet weight classes in competition, that doesn't make any sense either. There's places where strength in your chassis, in strength in your receiver, in strength in how you set up the rings and the scope and bits and pieces like that, where potentially to meet a weight class, a carbon fiber barrel could be a really good option, where you can have the strength in other things and then you still have a good, strong barrel and actually save some weight in that place. There's also places where I see real advantage in carbon fiber barrels, and that would be in switch barrel combinations. So guys, it's something that's coming more and more into the market. There's more and more manufacturers doing that side of things, but where you really want to build a hybrid rifle where it can do both jobs. And I get it, you've got to justify it to the boss, you've got to justify it to the accountant, you've got to justify it yourself, and you want to buy a very good rifle, you want to do both things. In my mind, you can't do both things well with that rifle, but this is the thing that's going to potentially take it closer. So I suppose there's two things that I really wanted to bring forward. One was, and very importantly, was carbon fiber barrels are not just a carbon fiber barrel. It really matters how they're made, and that moves into the different manufacturers and understanding that. Generally, that you're going to pay more money for a carbon fiber barrel because it simply takes more effort to build. There's as simple as that. There's more into it. Is it technically better than other barrels? There's more technology, but it doesn't make it technically better. It is different. It is lighter, and that's the main place it's going to win for you. And largely, that's in a heavier profile. That's where you're going to see the most advantages. You're getting a heavier barrel, which then gives you a stiffer barrel, and you don't have to gain too much weight to do it. So use that appropriately, and that's where a carbon fiber barrel will work well for you. And that's the other thing, really, is use them appropriately. Understand what they are. If you go through the process of actually keeping balance in mind, it's a super important part of a rifle, and keeping that in mind with what you're up to, then whether that's setting up the rifle into it's a stalking rifle and weight is the most important thing. It's a competition rifle where you really need that weight to be down to do that side of things. In some cases, competition because you've got to meet weight levels, but make sure you're doing it in a sensible sense. Make sure it makes sense. You can shorten a steel barrel and you're not going to lose that much speed. There is a little bit of speed out of going further, but speed isn't everything. And maybe it is everything for you, so you want to go longer so then the carbon fiber comes back into it. But the process is use it appropriately. As for the details of stiffer, stronger, all that sort of stuff, listen, no, it is reasonably stiff. It does have reasonable barrel life. Is it a lot better than a steel barrel? No, there's not a lot of difference. You're not going to be buying something because it's going to last forever. You're not going to be buying something because it's stiffer than you could ever imagine. It's going to be comparable. Its main feature it's got to offer you a carbon fiber barrel is it's lighter. So use that appropriately and you can build a really great rifle out of making sense of things. As I think I said earlier, if I didn't, I'll say it again. One of the places I see real advantages, and a place that I will start to use it on the channel with plans I've got coming up, is in going through with switch barrel combinations where it really can be this rifle and it really can be that rifle by changing a barrel, probably a couple of other components there, but actually having a really good core platform that can actually swap between the two. But for guys trying to build that PRS rifle that they need to run and do this sort of stuff, and they want to still have an accurate rifle that has lost weight, yeah, carbon fiber is a real option. For guys in the hunting rifle that really want to get things as accurate as they can, but weight is the more important thing than the accuracy to its extreme level, then the carbon fiber is an option. And I suppose the last bit I'm saying there does come back to that rifle balance, or that overall weight of the rifle. In general, a little more weight is going to make you a little bit better shooter. Doesn't necessarily make the rifle more accurate, it just is easier for you to shoot. So always keep that in mind with guys who need it to be super, super light. Well, in general, in a hunting situation, that means you're also saying you don't want to shoot quite so far, because in truth, your accuracy is probably going to drop off a little bit, not because the barrel is less accurate, not because the rifle is less accurate, because it's a little bit harder to shoot than it is as a heavy rifle. But anyway, listen, that's my overall of it. I think they are a good thing. I think they very much have a place in the industry. I hope that made some sense to people. Hope that helped some. And otherwise, thanks for checking in on us, and we'll catch you next time.